Hey, this is Dr. Greg, and on today's episode of the Daily Dose with Dr. Greg, I have the man, the myth, the legend that keeps me caffeinated. So for those of you that are following me on social media, about 3 or 4 months ago, I put a plea out to the world. I am a self-affirmed coffee snob, and as we started doing research on toxicity and mycotoxin illness, it became known to us that most coffee is a toxic overwhelm. So we actually asked the world, what coffee should we drink? And the overwhelming response was the crew at Lifeboost. I've actually got my my magic brew of Lifeboost here. And we're also going to talk, so on today's episode, so I have Dr. Charles. He is the founder, the brains behind it. So in today's episode, we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about why not all coffee is created alike, and why it not only is a thing that gets you going in the morning, but there are some substantial health benefits from consuming the right stuff. So Dr. Charles, thanks for spending some time with us today, and I'm excited to pick your brain.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Greg.
Yeah, so cool. So again, the first thing that I want to say to you is thank you, but no thank you. You have completely tweaked my coffee consumption forever. So I used to not mind when I was traveling to have and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to get in trouble by companies, but I used to not mind, stopping at a coffee shop and having a coffee. And now, not only from the paper cups, but just the taste, what it does to my body. It is a completely different experience, so much so that one of my employees, once a week, she would love on me and bring me a local Americano. And now about 2 weeks ago, I had to say to her, don't do that anymore. And I didn't mean that in a bad way. I was just I honestly don't like that stuff. The other thing that I want to say, dude, is I used to be very much a light coffee guy because I loved the ability to taste the notes and taste the fruits. And I didn't like dark coffee because the acidity, it felt like I was drinking battery acid. And I think I just told one of my team members to ask you guys if I could buy a 5-pound bag of the dark coffee because the flavor is amazing, the acidity is low. So, but we'll jump into me being a coffee snob here, dude. But let's go back to kind of the beginning of this and how you took your passion in healthcare and said, okay, there's this huge percentage of people that are drinking coffee. If they're not drinking the right stuff, it's probably poisoning them. And give us a tour as to where we are today from where it started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a chiropractor by trade, just like you.
Mm-hmm.
Practiced, for a while. Graduated from Palmer in Davenport, Iowa, and very holistic minded. I love the holistic framework on how to think of the body, as a whole, and how everything connects with everything else. And, nutrition was one of my favorite things. And I just put thousands of hours into studying all types of nutrition. And I honestly didn't start drinking coffee till I was 30. And of course I started with the foofy drinks over at Starbucks and, all the calorific stuff that's added to it. Yeah. That's typically how most people start coffee, is all the sugar.
Totally.
Slowly I was gaining weight and it was wrecking my digestive system. But, that caffeine rush, you're willing to go above and beyond to have that. Mm-hmm. So what happened is during, I practiced chiropractic, I retired, I started to get into online marketing. I was big into weight loss online. I had a very popular ebook online on weight loss. And then from there, we took that concept and iterated it into a supplement company. So what happened was a small farm in Nicaragua was taking my supplements, and they absolutely adored them and loved them. And they contacted me and were like, hey, we want to put your supplements in our coffee. And I'm like, this is a terrible idea. These are liver herbs and right. It will taste gross. You do not want that. You will not sell any. Yeah. But, I'm starting to understand more of the nuances and the health benefits of coffee from my research. Would you please send me some of your coffee? So they did. And it was the best coffee I had ever had. And I was like, we just start talking. And, at that time I was just listening to, how they made the coffee and things. And then I started doing my own research and realized that there wasn't at that time really a healthy coffee brand. where they really paid attention to, the nuances of coffee. Coffee is the third most drank beverage in the world.
What's water? What's number 2?
Tea.
Tea. Okay. Interesting.
Tea.
Yeah.
And third is coffee. And
isn't it like 60 some percent statistically of Americans drink coffee?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's number 1 source of antioxidants. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's the number 1 source of antioxidants for Americans is coffee. And it is loaded with antioxidants. I will give it that. But it could also mean that people aren't eating enough fruits and vegetables.
True story.
Look at it either way, right?
Yeah.
But so, during the research, there was a gap for healthy coffee. And, being a cash crop, the third most drank beverage in the world, like, you have to think about the process of how they're able to do that.
Right.
What do you think they do? Right.
No different than the cows that they feed corn to, because the faster they can make a fat cow, the faster they have a hamburger.
So in order to create that much coffee, that's where deforestation comes into play. That's where they heavily spray it with chemicals and pesticides and things like that. And, as toxins bioaccumulate in your body. And it's not so much one bad cup or one cup of just normal coffee that's going to mess you up. It's that accumulation over time.
Right.
Your body hits a threshold, you have all these toxins, and all of a sudden you start to have these weird symptoms of health, and you're like, I don't know where this came from, and then all of a sudden people can't drink coffee anymore. And that's kind of, I was just walking through all this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm drinking this. I'm 30. It's starting to mess up my digestion. So switch to a healthier brand and understanding the nuances of that. And it cleared all that up. But for me, like, if I'm doing it every single day, multiple cups, I want the cleanest source possible.
No doubt. So the businessman, and you said, man, there's a market here. And then the philanthropist dude, and you said, man, there's these people in Nicaragua that are, they've got something going on that I could help them out, right? So did you poke a little bit with them, or were you like, hey, like, how's business? Or how did you say, I think I would love to come alongside and be a blessing to you guys? Walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the owners of the small farm, actually, I think it was like his nephew or something. Anyway, his niece was going to IU. And so he was actually in Indiana. So we met up for coffee. And we were just going over things and talking, and then I just mentioned it, and he was like, you know what, I think we could do something there. And so that's literally how it started.
So when you guys started, how many so I come from a farming, ranching Midwest world where we talk in acres. So in the coffee world, is it we have so many acres or so many trees? What is the metric that's used?
Oh man, acres and hectares you hear a lot about.
Yeah. Okay.
So this was, I don't even know how big this one was. I know it was a small farm. The original farm that we were using was it was in Nicaragua, a small area in Nicaragua. Now we were using multiple places in Nicaragua because one small farm can't hold the volume. But
that's so cool.
The whole idea was to be able to find a country that has an amazing coffee that nobody knows about. It gets overshadowed, right, by bigger countries down there. You've got Colombia, you've got, Guatemala, you've got a lot of these other countries down there. Brazil, obviously, is the world's largest coffee producer, that overshadow these smaller nations, but their coffee is so good. And since it's such a third world country, it's like we were trying to figure out how we could also give back and stimulate their economy as well.
Absolutely. So the coffee's obviously grown down in Nicaragua, and then it's obviously, is it all the way to put in your bags in Nicaragua, or what's the life cycle? No. How does it get to my coffee maker in Minnesota?
That's a great question. It started that way. They were doing everything down there, and we're like, okay, we need to, fix the supply chain, because one, we want it fresh, more fresh for our customers who want to be able to scale. And that way, sending it on a boat over here is way harder when it's that way versus sending just pounds of green coffee beans. So now, they provide us the green coffee beans. They do their testing and stuff down there. They send it to us. We send it to, I have right now 4 roasters across the US that we use.
Okay.
So we'll send it to our roasters. And then from there, we'll roast, and then we'll end up testing as well. We third party test all of our coffee just to make sure that it is the cleanest, purest possible.
Yeah,
so
I don't want to skip over that, Dr. Charles. You've actually dropped the word testing twice on me now. So you said that it gets tested in Nicaragua. So what types of things are they testing for there?
Yeah, mycotoxins, molds. There's like around the world, there's like, you're only allowed like so much like a limit of mycotoxins in order to pass. And I know Europe has got the most strict, and what happens is if it can't pass Europe, a lot of times they'll send it to the US.
They're like, hey, just send it to the US. They'll take anything.
They'll drink anything.
I know. So it has to pass a certain component there, and then it lands in the States. And one of the things that I use your guys' coffee, because I know that you third-party test, and then you test for things that no one even tests for. So is that where your really elaborate testing happens then here in the States?
Yeah. So we'll send it off to a lab, and they'll test for 450 plus different toxins. Like, I get this whole spreadsheet of words I can't even pronounce. I'm like, wow, I can't believe there's that many things that end up getting sprayed on plants.
Right. And I guess, have you guys actually, like, are you batting 1,000, or have you ever had batches that for whatever reason didn't meet standards for you guys?
We've had a few, yeah. And like we question them, and we try to like backtrace and figure out like what the issue was. And it's always handled. So like the other thing we also do is we test for glyphosate.
Yeah.
So, which is funny because you don't really hear about that in coffee, but it's like one of the most popular pesticides, right?
So is it so? I mean, I grew up in ranching country of North Dakota, so like Roundup Ready corn, soybeans. I mean, and my mom's sister has a 5,000 acre wheat farm in northern North Dakota, and 3 days before they harvest the wheat crop, they spray the entire field with Roundup for 2 reasons. Number one, it dries out the wheat plant. Number two, it kills all the green weeds that are in the field. Because if you run those green weeds through the combine, it's really hard on the equipment. But what people need to understand is that's a ripe piece of fruit. That wheat is ripe, and you just sprayed glyphosate on it. So I actually do test most of my patients for glyphosate. There is a company that allows us to check internal levels of glyphosate. And I had a patient I think the day before yesterday, that was 10 times the allowed amount. So what I want to ask you is, so for example, I feel that a lot of people that are quote unquote gluten sensitive are really actually glyphosate sensitive. And that's why they can have wheat in Europe and they're just fine. But if they have wheat raised in the United States, they seem to have this weird reaction. But you just dropped the glyphosate word on me in regards to coffee. So in your opinion, and obviously we have really no way to prove this, we definitely know that the mycotoxin load inside of coffee could unequivocally give someone a quote unquote an allergic or a sensitive reaction. But would you guess, I mean, here we are postulated on a podcast. Do you think that there could be even like, do you know of the glyphosate levels of some of those other people's coffees? And if people would know their levels, would they be like, I would never drink that stuff? Like, have you guys taken your competitor's bean into the lab and check their levels?
That's phase 2. Yeah, we're getting ready to do more of that. I'm super curious because like it's one of those things where if a coffee, because we're certified organic, for our main roast, and like you're supposed to be glyphosate free if you're certified organic, but I like to trust but verify as well.
Totally.
Because I know that they're like, it seems like they're allowing, like there's certain pesticides that are allowed to be organic or for certified organic. So
it's a little bit of a gray area, right? So that's
it is. And I think that's, there's reasons for that, I'm sure.
I think for me, respectfully, the number one reason why I recommend your coffee to our patients is just the taste, the flavor, the profile. But the other part is that, if I have patients that are buying organic vegetables, buying free range grass-fed beef, I think a big part of it, so we shot this TikTok video about coffee being moldy, And like people were like, I've never heard of that. So there's that huge component of like this is a big deal. One of the things though, and talk to me about this acidity component, because I can like pound your dark coffee and it does not tear me up. So what happens? What is different with your bean or your process? Like what's going down with the acidity?
Yeah, so we've created one of our what we call our Trust Pure process. It's our trademarked process that basically is our checklist to, from farm to cup. These are the things that are required in order to be a Lifeboost bean that we would actually sell to our customers. Okay. And one of the things is we pH test, and it's the region it's grown in is very important for low acid. And some regions are just better. I don't know why.
So like the soil makeup in Nicaragua, for whatever reason, produces a different bean.
Yeah. And then there's something with elevation, which is ironic because typically a lower elevation coffee is supposedly more or less acidic. But ours, we grow it like 5,700 feet above sea level, so that was one of those weird things where we're like, that's kind of strange, Yeah,
that pH is pH. But you can't make it up, right? You're doing the testing. So respectfully, you guys kind of stumbled upon like serendipitously this region with the air, and even like you'd have to assume, are coffee plants irrigated? Like, do they have irrigation systems typically, or do they rely upon Mother Nature raining on them, or what is that? How does that work?
I would say that probably big coffee, right?
Yeah.
Their farms, since they're like more sun dried, they have, those big open areas. Most likely they'd be irrigated. Ours, I'm almost positive it is not, because they're pretty high up in the mountains, and I don't know if they could actually do that, because like these farmers are taking like motorbikes and carrying coffee down the mountain, or they're doing it, with mules, or just carrying it down the mountain.
I think
like some of these regions, I'm like, I don't know. You guys gotta be in amazing shape.
I tell you what,
I can make it there.
Let's talk about coffee for a moment. Did you know it's the #1 source of antioxidants in the US? It's also the 3rd most drank beverage around the world. Unfortunately, there's a dark side to coffee. In order to produce a cash crop like coffee, it's heavily sprayed with pesticides. It's also acidic, causing stomach issues, and many have to stop drinking coffee as they get older. That's why I started drinking Lifeboost coffee. I wanted something that had all the health benefits with none of the mold and chemicals found in regular coffee. Plus, it doesn't hurt my stomach. They also third-party test for over 450 toxins, including mycotoxins, molds, heavy metals, pesticides, and even glyphosate, just to make sure it's the cleanest, healthiest cup they can provide to their customers. Since you're listening to my podcast right now, you can get 50% off your first order by going to lifeboostdeal.com. They serve a variety of organic coffees as well as healthy, low-acid flavored and decaf options. This isn't just an ad. I'm a Lifeboost customer as well. Lifeboost coffee, low acid, healthy, and tastes amazing. Go to lifeboostdeal.com to get 50% off now.
I'm gonna. It's on the podcast, so it's documented. But I want to go on a trip. I am so intrigued by these things. So I would love to jump on a motorbike and a prop plane and see this, because the thing that really touches me. I mean, I grew up in ranching country, and I just want to like give you a shout out. Like the reality is, with what we're doing with mostly people in the States. I know you guys have clients around the world, but the infrastructure, the jobs, the lives that you're creating. I mean, I bet, and maybe they do when you show up, they're like, that's the guy, right? That's the guy that allows us to do what we do. And there's got to be a part of you, Dr. Charles, that's like, dang, like this feels really good. Have you had a chance to like be there and be around those farmers and they realize who you are?
No, because in Nicaragua, I've been invited on a couple of trips, but it's also a war-torn country, and it's pretty dangerous. And then COVID hit, so every time I wanted to go, I had to back out.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
But I will say this: I do have photographers down there who do like go down there and like that are local that will take pictures for us. And one of the things we are doing is we partner with Project Alianza, which they build schools in the regions where we grow our coffee. So we're helping them build schools. We're on our second school now. And so I didn't even know this until I was talking with them, but like these areas, like they are so poor that they don't even have a school for their children. So the children end up just working on the farm with their parents and they don't get to be educated. So then we build a school down there where they can be educated, but that school also ends up being a community center for everyone else. So it's just something that everybody can enjoy. So that's something that we're really proud that we were partnered with, and they're excited, and we just keep trying to build more and more schools down there. So
that's so cool, dude. Again, like the thing I love is when there's, mission behind just, in this case, a coffee bean. So I would love, and maybe in our show notes, we'll put a link to, you said Project Alianza?
Alianza, Alianza. Alianza.
So we'll put a link to in our show notes because, man, to see generations change is pretty clutch inside of this, my friend. So if somebody is listening to this right now and they're like, yeah, I like coffee. I mean, let's talk about, and again, this is not to bash the competitors or who else is out there, but give me the biggest differences between going to your grocery store and buying a bag of random coffee bean and what you guys offer at Lifeboost. Give people some real differences as to why it's worth the difference.
So this is what I've always told my patients when I was practicing. You're either going to pay now for your health or you're going to pay later. So do things now to protect your health and prevent issues from happening. Right. Then, later on when you're dealing with the symptoms and have to go backwards, right?
Yeah.
Or changing.
I've even told my patients, pay the farmer or pay the doctor. And this is like a legit statement, right? We get to pay the farmers. So then there's got to be unequivocal health benefits to healthy coffee. So do a bit of a dive for me as to, and I know there's even some research on your website that talks about this. So what are some of the pieces of research that prove that this is no longer the drink that your parents drank growing up from the tin can, but it's now actually it's actually a part of your health program? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So, coffee's got like over 1,000 different compounds that are beneficial for your health. And some of these compounds they don't even know. So for instance, like going to the bathroom, they still don't understand why coffee makes you go to the bathroom.
I did see a coffee cup one time that says coffee makes me poop. And I was like, there's truth to that. Yeah. But what you're saying is they don't really understand the
They have their theories and stuff, but nobody like 100% understands because there's so many. Coffee is such a complex thing.
Right.
It's so interesting.
Right.
But I mean, from there you've got the health benefits of, I know you asked specifically ours, so I'll touch that here in a second. But I mean, coffee. If they're Johns Hopkins Medicine on their webpage, they did a great article on coffee talking about all the benefits and. Anything from like a certain amount of cups have been shown to have been linked with, helping prevent different types of cancers. It's been shown to, one of the most studied things is actually metabolism and weight loss, which is why you see a lot of bodybuilders just loading up on caffeine. Yep. I'm not saying that's a good thing because they're taking, like a lot of these guys, not only are they drinking coffee, but they're taking straight caffeine anhydrous and just like, oh man. But so there's a lot of metabolism benefits to coffee, anti-aging effects, tons of anti-aging effects, and longer lifespans have been attributed to coffee.
I want to speak to that for a second because I love you, Dad. So my parents grew up drinking coffee, and what I can tell you, I have a huge emotional anchor to coffee. Like you, I made it through chiropractic school. I didn't have my first cup of coffee until my late 20s because I was kissed with the nastiest coffee kisses as a child growing up that I was like, oh, hell no. You're not doing that. Though as I jumped into business and we got busy and I was introduced to coffee, what I realized when I have this in my hand, this tells me two things. By the way, I like it hot because hot makes me sip slowly and relax. So my anchor to growing up is it's like the only time I ever saw my dad sit down and chill. was to sip a cup of coffee. So even like you talk about anti-aging, I'm like, that's interesting because, you know, and I'm not saying that's the reason because you slow down, but man, sometimes we have like these anchors to our upbringing and it just ties us into that. So, but I love the anti-aging part because there's, you know, with the antioxidants, it's pretty profound. What else did you guys find?
So the anti-aging, memory boost, like huge for focus and memory. And now you're starting to see people do plays off of that where they'll add mushrooms or things like that even enhance it. So coffee acts as a carrier to a lot of other healthy ingredients. And that's something we could touch on here in a moment too. I'll tell you my coffee concoction that I drink.
Let's go. I like it.
What I call it, my Life Boost latte or my superfood latte that I make.
Dude, just go there. You're talking about it right now. What's in your blend?
So every morning, so I'm opposite of you. I do cold brew, and that is my number one problem is I drink it way too fast. It's just so good, and I just catch myself not paying attention where I'm like reading something, and all of a sudden, like I just drank like half of it in like a minute. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to slow down because then I'm like, you know, like, oh, I got so much energy. What can I do next? But what I'll do is I'll cold brew the coffee. I'll throw it in a blender. I'll add C8 MCT oil, which is the one thing with MCT oil is it's a medium chain triglyceride. It's instant energy. Your liver takes it, and since it's a medium chain and not a long chain fatty acid, it breaks it down really fast. Yep. So you can get an immediate energy rush from that, or energy boost. So we'll do that. MCT, we use C8 because a lot of people can't handle MCTs in general, gives them disaster pants, I guess you could say.
Disaster pants.
So because they don't have the enzymes to process that type of a fat yet, or a heavier amount of fat. Yep. So like C8 completely bypasses that. So if you do straight C8, you're good. No problem. Yep. So C8, I'll do a multi-collagen. So I just know all the benefits of collagen, for skin, hair, nails, it's just really good. A lot of gut health, tons of things in there. So I have those two things. And then we're coming out with these drops called Everlow coffee drops, and they're electrolyte. They're a specifically designed electrolyte drop that you put in your coffee, but it remineralizes it. Because one thing with coffee is like, it is a diuretic, and along with water that comes out of your body comes your minerals, right? Yes. Yep. So I've learned that if I remineralize it, I get the added benefits of that.
Do you guys flavor those mineral drops, or are they? Oh, so we're just so far it's tasting like coffee.
As soon as we're about done, like it's been a labor of love, a long time to get this done. But as soon as I get some, I'll send you some. And it's funny because when you put those in there, instantly you know the difference. Like if you just drink your coffee, you put in like it's only like between 5 and 8 drops, just little drops. Yep. Completely changes. It cuts any bitterness out of the coffee.
That's interesting.
So helps with acidity, it remineralizes, all the added benefits of the trace minerals. Yep. And it literally takes any edge off of a cup of coffee.
So for those listening, so I'm a hot brew guy. We have a Keurig in our clinic where we use your guys' pods, but then I also will do a French press or
love French press.
Yeah. So what is your cold brew process? What does that look like when do you make a big vat of it, or how do you? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I got one of those OXO cold brew makers. It's just a little big cylinder with a little beaker under it, and so I just throw my grounds in. I use a coarse grind, just like you would a French press. Yep. Throw your grinds in there, put the water in, let it sit for 24 hours. And what it does is that in itself helps your coffee to be. I think it was like
less acidic.
Yeah, it was something like 70% less acidic.
So we'll put in the show notes, we'll put a link to that cold brew machine. Now you're going to make me make some cold brew coffee because I'm super curious about it. And then like how many days worth of coffee does that one batch make for you, Dr. Charles?
So for me, that'll make about five, almost a week's supply.
Okay. And you just then throw it in the fridge and it keeps?
Yeah. Just stick it in the fridge. So I'll drain it and throw the grounds away. Or compost them, throw them in the garden or whatever. And then I'll put the beaker, because you get like a cold brew concentrate.
Yeah.
So then you add water to it. So I like mine stronger. So it's like 2 parts coffee to 1 part water.
Okay.
And then I'll also use alkaline water as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool, man. We do.
So purified, toxin-free alkaline water.
Yeah. And water really is one of those clutch things to make a good cup of coffee. We're getting into the water world. We have a water structuring system, and there's some interesting conversations. So a good friend of mine, Ben Greenfield, his dad is actually like this wizard when it comes to water. So we actually use his structuring machines, and so much so that I'm actually putting one of his this is completely bunny trail, but I actually am putting a water structuring unit on my home lawn irrigation system, because the majority of his research is in agriculture. So you can so I'm actually structuring the water for my sprinkler system.
That is insane.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. He's a really good dude. He's as like backwoods granola as they come, but he's a smart cat. So I'm excited. Yeah, so we'll put a link in the show notes for that cold brew system for the people that enjoy that. When we lived in Hawaii, I definitely drank a lot of cold brew, because who wants to drink a hot cup of coffee when it's 85 degrees out? And two, there's times like when I'm really trying to become fat adapted, that C8 MCT oil, I have been known to use like sweet leaf stevia drops to flavor.
That's great.
So I'll take like a cup of hot coffee. I will add the MCT oil, sometimes some grass-fed butter, and then some of the stevia drops, and then throw it into a blender. And it is an amazing meal. Instant energy, super clean. So for those that are trying to, maybe be a little bit cleaner in the keto world, or watch the carbohydrates, super, super clutch from that standpoint. So, dude, this is good stuff. So now, you've talked about coffee as a whole and the benefits of it. Like give me kind of, like an unashamed pitch for you guys. Like why is LifeBoost better than even the other like quote unquote healthy coffees that are out there?
So I will put it this way. So here's the thing, just like health is such an interesting thing. It's fascinating because like the things you eat, it's a lot of them are 2 steps forward and 1 step back, right? Like for instance, fruits and vegetables, tons of health benefits, antioxidants, all that. Also, you have anti-nutrients. They can jack your system up, right? Oxalates, lectin, phytins, right? So it's like a balance, right? Coffee is the same way. There's all these health benefits, but if you're drinking coffee that's got all these health benefits, but it's loaded with pesticides and mycotoxins, you're going to have some benefit, but you're also going to, it can go back and forth. Okay. So for me, I'm like, okay, I want all the benefits, but I want all this other stuff. So for LifeBoost, that's why we third-party test for 450 plus toxins and mycotoxins and molds and glyphosate and all that.
Yeah.
The way it's grown, we grow our beans to full maturity to allow as many of the antioxidants to fully, get into the bean as possible. And also, I believe that's one of the reasons why it's a lower acidity, and it's shade grown to also protect to allow the birds, migratory birds from the U.S. They go down south, right, and they'll nest in these canopies, and they act as like natural pesticides, because they eat all the bugs on the coffee plants underneath.
That's so cool. The other thing that surprised me actually was all of the flavored coffees that you guys have, because in the world of coffee flavoring, we're talking like chemical alphabet soup to create these flavors, right? So here I am, you guys are this super healthy coffee company. You have all these benefits, and then now you're saying like, I've got hazelnut and pistachio, and I'm like, wait. And then on our first call, you explained that to me, and I was like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. So walk the listeners a little bit through like your flavoring process and why they're not losing all the benefits of this healthy coffee with these flavorings.
Yeah, so this is crazy because when I started diving into flavor coffee, it's its own little, like, it's got its own little cult following. It's weird because like most people like, medium or dark roast, but then you have this flavor coffee, and when you see in stores, you see all these crazy flavors like Highlander grog or Jamaica Me Crazy, and then you got French vanilla and hazelnut, which are obviously the 2 most popular. Yep. But if you understand the process of how it's made, here's how flavored coffee is made. They take crappy beans because it's flavored. in order to flavor the coffee, you have to put a sticky agent on the beans to hold the flavor on. Oh. They would use propylene glycol.
Whoa.
Yeah. So most flavored coffees have propylene glycol on there.
So put propylene glycol into English for Susie, the flavored coffee drinker. What is like?
It's antifreeze.
Bingo. So for those of you that are drinking like French vanilla, I hope that you're enjoying your antifreeze along the way. Crazy.
No,
okay, continue.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we like, when I'm like reverse engineering this, I'm like, okay, one, we are going to use the same exact beans, our single origin, shade grown, elevation grown, low acid beans. Yep. We're going to use the same beans and we're going to add flavor to them. And so I was like, definitely not using propylene glycol. So we switched to ethanol. So we use like an ethanol type which is basically alcohol. Mm-hmm. No alcohol in the coffee.
It evaporates. Sure.
Yeah. But what happens is it leaves the essence of the flavors on the beans. And so the flavors, we use like natural flavors that are made from organic compounds, essential oils, and different extracts.
Right.
Okay. So it's like in the flavor industry, it's not like there's no artificial flavors. It's made from natural organic compounds.
Yeah. Like you had said to me, if I recall from our previous conversation, you're like, so like vanilla extract that you would use to bake with, like we use.
Yeah. Like almond extract, vanilla extract, those type of things.
That's awesome, dude. Now, the other thing, a whole nother probably cult following, and I have some employees that are on your cult of this following now, is the decaf world. So maybe talk to me a little bit about decaffeination, maybe how your process is different and why someone that is a decaf person would have a different experience with your stuff.
Yeah, so with decaf, they use some pretty heavy chemicals to decaffeinate coffee, like the majority. There are some methods that don't, and that's what we use. And it's called, one of the main ones is called Swiss water process. And it's just this complicated like process of using water to decaffeinate beans.
And obviously there's no such thing as no caffeine. So decaffeinated beans still have a very small amount of caffeine.
Yeah, it's a tiny amount, but not enough to really do anything.
That is so cool.
So I mean, that's it. And that's the thing, is like, the other thing with decaffeinated beans is like, we want to make sure it's single origin, it's tested, all the same thing, criteria. So we're not going to cut any corners.
So when I feel like single origin, so you said earlier that you have like multiple farms in Nicaragua. So when you say a single origin, that means every bean in my bag of dark roast came from one of those farms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And why? So if single origin is a big deal, what you're really saying is most coffee companies get this like truckload of beans. They don't care where it came from. And you could have just a... Or
they'll do blends. So meaning they'll take, like, for instance, you see this a lot happening with Kona coffee, because Kona is so expensive. It's over $50, probably $60 a pound now. Right. For true Kona beans. But you'll see what they'll do is they'll advertise Kona coffee. There'll be a blend between Kona beans and an inferior bean, just to get a little bit of the Kona flavor, but then they will cover up the rest with the beans. So there's a lot of cross contamination that can happen. And so with this aspect, I wanted to give the purest source possible.
That's cool.
So that's why we do single origin, which is more based on the region and, in the farm or, a small co-op that are close together that are all the same region. Right.
So I always like to know, like, what's on the docket. So you just talked about the remineralization electrolyte drops. What else, if you were to look in your future glass, what else can we see from Lifeboost in the next chunk of time?
So one of the things that were coming out, oh my gosh, this has taken even longer than getting the coffee drops done, is we're completely redoing our creamer. And this time we're doing it one with multi-collagen, because I want the benefits. So it's grass-fed collagen, free-range chicken collagen, wild-caught fish collagen, and eggshell membrane. So it's just trying to cover more of the spectrum of collagen, because they all have a little bit of nuance to how they affect your health.
Yep.
So we've got that, the C8, and the problem is it's so expensive to make,
right?
Because you're getting like high-end pure ingredients. But then what I wanted to
source for what is the main healthy source of C8? Is it palm oil, or where's it coming from? Coconuts?
Coconuts, yeah.
Coconuts, that's what I figured. Yeah, because typical C6 and C8, the 6 comes from the palm oil just because it's so cheap, if I recall. Is that?
Yeah. So yeah, we're using high-end. We use for me, I like to use trademarked ingredients, which adds another cost to it. One, they do their own research on that ingredient.
Yeah.
As well, on that single ingredient. So the ingredient that we're putting into the creamer is the research has been done on that ingredient, not just a blanket saying, hey, C8's great for all this, but they're saying this C8, which the one we're using, I think is called C8 Vantage.
And will this be a powdered?
Yeah, it's unflavored powder. Like, I don't want to flavor anything. I want you to add your own flavors.
Yeah.
It just gives more the ability for more variety, right?
That's awesome.
You can make it how you want it. But we have that. And then what I also wanted to do was add something that can really affect the mitochondria, because I want you to be able to have the energy boost now and then provide building blocks so you can have sustained energy.
Right.
So we have a couple ingredients in there that will help feed the mitochondria as well.
You're talking in the creamer.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's so good. Because you're right. I mean, there's this conversation of lion's mane and shiitake and some of these other ingredients. So you're trying to essentially make a smarter coffee option for people. So I love it. We always got to keep our fingers inside of things. I dig it, man. So that's so cool. I'm so grateful just to have this conversation. I always like to kind of ask some questions that are off the cuff a little bit. So, I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss. I love how he kind of like spitballs people's questions along the way. So I'm a huge book reader. So if you were to give me a book, whether I've read it before or not, what is the book that you've given away the most in your professional career?
Oh my gosh. That is a great question. It depends on what it's for. Like the 4 Agreements, I absolutely love that book.
Yeah. Is that Lencioni? Is that who wrote that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the 4 Agreements and the 5th Agreement, I think those are very good. Cool. So it depends if they're like into entrepreneurship, there's like different books that I'll recommend for that. Or if it's like, I do like a lot of Tony Robbins stuff. I think for foundational, I think he's got a lot of great stuff.
That's cool. I love it. Next question. Today is your last day on Mother Earth, and I am world's most executive chef, and I can make anything you want for your last meal. What am I making for you?
Oh man, my last meal. You know what? I love like a very good king crab leg. That's probably one of my favorite things to like. If you want like that, if I'm having a chef do it, I want him to make me some amazing meal that's like crab legs and then some other like things that can go with it.
I love it. And where would this meal be partaken? Where in the world would you have this king crab leg feast?
Somewhere on probably Fiji or, some island that has an amazing beach.
I love it. I'm a beach guy too, man. No doubt. So when you're no longer here, kind of last question, what real impact are you hoping that Lifeboost leaves on Earth? What's your motive behind that, Dr. Charles?
One is to create a coffee company that is health, customer focused, health first.
Right.
So that what you're drinking is healthy for you and isn't going to have a lot of the toxins in it. Right. And that the goal is to create, basically we helped create the healthy coffee category.
I know. That's awesome.
So that's it. And just be able to keep this brand around as long as possible.
I love it, dude. Well, thank you for not making me go to Nicaragua and buy a coffee farm and supplying this for our people. We're grateful. So if you're listening to this, you guys, we've actually created a bit of a partnership.
Lifeboost Coffee offers an incredible variety of organic coffees, and there's an additional benefit to Lifeboost. All Lifeboost coffees are low acid, which means that if you've had to cut back on coffee before because it irritates your gut, you can enjoy Lifeboost without any issues. People are often amazed at the difference between Lifeboost and other coffees. For example, Lifeboost doesn't sit on store shelves for months. There's no fresher way to get coffee, and it's delivered right to your door. Since you're listening to my podcast right now, they are running a 50% off special for your first order. Go to lifeboostdeal.com.
How else can our listeners learn more about what you guys are doing at LifeBoost, Dr. Charles?
We have a Facebook group called the Lifeboost Experience Group, and it's gated, so you have to answer a few questions to get in. That's just to keep spammers and bots out.
Right.
Otherwise,
okay.
I have what's the word for it? Just mediators and people in there
Moderators.
that watch over. Yeah, moderators. That's it.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that one, everybody's kind to each other, and two, you don't have a bunch of people trying to spam and sell stuff.
Sell their own thing. Yeah. So we'll put a link to that in our show notes. But here's the scoop, you guys. This stuff's legit. This is what's in my house. This is what's in my clinic. This is what's in my cup right now. So if you are like me, a self-proclaimed coffee snob, I would tell you right now that this is going to be a new experience. Yeah. So Dr. Charles, I'm grateful to take a sliver of your day, dude. It really means a lot to us. We are really the goal when we were talking about putting together this show. Like my goal was to take my platform and just kind of weed through the BS, to weed through the people that are trying to make a buck or market somebody, and be like, no, you can trust me. I'm going to put the best things in front of you. So thank you for actually, you're actually our first formal guest inside of our brand new studio here. So we're grateful for that. And I'm stoked to call you a friend. And each day that I schlep down I definitely drink more than a cup of this stuff. So just grateful for what you're doing, my friend.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on here. Oh yeah, I will send you one of the other products we just came out with, like within the past few weeks, is we're doing boxed cold brews. So it's already done for you. You just, you pop the thing off the box and it has a tap on it, and you just pour it into your cup.
Oh my gosh. Well, there you
go.
go.
So I will send you some of those to try out.
Oh my gosh.
See what you think.
I love it. Well, hang on here. I'll do a little outro. So there you guys have it. So that is Dr. Charles Livingston with LifeBoost. We're grateful to have him on, and stay tuned for our next episode.